first talk about Project Open Data, the White House Open Data Policy. So the White House recently came out with, my background is in open source software. When you think about open source software, the most basic level of open source software is something called a diff. All the diff says is it says who made what change when. But the empowering thing about a diff, and here's a diff here, is that it enables these very granular discussions. Geeks know that if so much as a single period, a single comma is off, the entire program comes crashing to a halt. So as a result, over the past 30 years or so, very, very complicated systems and very nuanced systems of collaboration have come about. That's not how it started, though. It started out that someone would publish a piece of software, usually as a zip file. Someone would grab it from like an FTP server, download it, use it. They found some mistakes, they had some questions, they emailed that person directly. Maybe they find some improvements, they email it back and forth. But it was very much hub and spoke, one single point of failure. But when you think about it, whether you're working on software source code, whether you're working on tabular data, policy itself, it's all zeros and ones. It's all files inside the computer. It doesn't matter what you're actually collaborating on. You can take those tools and use them for other things. Think about how we as data collaborators, whether we're collaborating on code, on policy, how do we collaborate? Chances are it probably looks something like this. Somebody sends out a file, usually with Microsoft Word, tracks changes, says, hey, please get some comments back to me by end of business. But the problem with that, besides for like this awesome file name, which I have no idea what that means, but we've all seen that, come on, you can. The problem with that is it's a bespoke collaboration process. Each time we need to collaborate, we're reinventing the wheel and going back to reconsidering how we collaborate. So if I send you those comments, I have no way of knowing, did you see my changes? Did they get lost in your inbox? Did you discuss them? Did you see them and like decided not to use them? Do you just not get my emails? Is it going to spam? There's no way to know. We're not exposing process. The only thing we're exposing is the end result. Again, whether we're doing this as source code, whether we're doing this policy. So we still, although in DC we banned smoking, we still have these quintessential smoke-filled back rooms where decisions are made. If you're not physically in that mahogany-rich room when the decision's made, you're not part of the decision, whether it's policy, whether it's data, what data set to publish, whether it's what columns you put in that data set. The only thing that ever actually leaves the room is the final outcome of the decision. So in open source software, we try to expose process. On the left, we have a memo from the 70s. On the right, we have a memo from today. How do we expose policy? You'll see there's very little difference. The only thing that changed is we're using Microsoft Word instead of a typewriter, still sitting down, typing, saying it out the door, and the font changed, right? But essentially, we're still building policy, we're still releasing data, we're still changing the way that we as a society govern like we did 40 years ago. So this is Project Open Data, the White House Open Data Policy. Typically, when these types of documents are produced, by the time they go through the vetting process, they're already outdated. And then again, you have this opaque process where nobody knows why decisions were made. So when we published the White House Open Data Policy this past May, we decided to do it a little bit differently. We published it as a living collaborative document on GitHub, which had 3 key changes. You'll notice across the top, and this is the live website you can go to right now, there's 3 buttons: help improve this content, view revision history, and discuss. Right there is a fundamental shift in the way the government exposes policy, the way it exposes process. It's fundamentally saying we as a government do not know everything about putting out policy. Please help us make this better. This policy is here to serve you. So when you click help improve this content, this is what you see. A Microsoft Word style editor directly in your browser. If I want to add a comma, a period, change the wording, make a suggestion, I just make my suggested change and hit submit. It's not like a wiki where all of a sudden it's immediately live, where everyone's a free-for-all. But the difference is it goes into a queue where it can be moderated. The second button you saw at the top was view revision history. Right? So all of a sudden I can see which White House policy staffers made which changes, who proposed them, and then each of these links are a link to a discussion where we can see why that decision was made, and anyone in the public can participate within that discussion. So the kind of underlying assumption here is that technology is pushing us to the tipping point where it's becoming easier to work together than to work alone. And here's the result of that. So it was released in May. Since May, there's been over 300 contributions submitted from the public. You can see here in the past month or so, 8 different authors made 26 contributions. You can see the graph over time. You can start treating the policy with a little bit more respect, the same respect that geeks treat their code, knowing that if a single character is off, the entire thing is come crashing to a halt. So this is a discussion. I love this discussion. This is a discussion to add 1 link to the White House Open Data Policy with an additional resource. 100 comments later, subject matter experts weighing in, and this is a URL that you can go to today. It didn't happen in a hallway. It didn't happen in an ex parte meeting. It happened entirely in the public, online, in a very civil form of discourse. So if there's one takeaway today, it's that when you're exposing data, when you're working to collaborate, when you're looking to publish, don't just do it on a typewriter, do it in Microsoft Word, and then throw it out the door, but do it in a web-first workflow, do it in a way that exposes process, and think about how you can make your own workflows, with its data publication or content publication, more collaborative. Thank you very much.